I seem to remember he's got quite a sort of ambitious haircut as well. Maybe there's something
It's
going
gone
on.
through various phases. Sometimes it's quite long and shaggy, and
Exactly.
sometimes
So it's
bit
a
more like
borderline
mine.
mullet.
So you're saying there's like
kind of like your hair before you had that sharp
Yeah,
haircut.
I do the
Ian.
same thing.
So it's
That's true.
It's a red flag. Just come up with a mullet.
I think today marks end of mullet day.
You're CEO material. If you're
Hello and welcome to another Telecoms.com podcast. Just to remind you that if you're listening to this on SoundCloud or on iTunes, you can also watch it on the site or on Facebook. And if you're watching it, you can listen to it on SoundCloud or iTunes. I'm joined, as I so often am, by Jamie and Ian from Light Reading. Now, there's plenty of stuff going on that's been going on today. Yes, I know, Pierre, this isn't going out till Monday, but I'm going to say today anyway. He gets on our case about that, everyone.
no, must say Jamie's fiddling with the mic.
Jamie's digging about with the mic. That's all right. So today, being Friday, Gavin Patterson sort of threw in the towel. The CEO of BT and arguably the most handsome man in telecoms.
I'd argue whether he threw in the towel.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think he's really tall.
I don't think it was so much his
Well,
choice.
tell me, you wrote it up. What did he do? Was there a towel involved at all?
No.
Like,
Someone-
well,
it was someone flicking him with a towel.
yeah.
So a bit of gym towel flicking going on.
I mean, I think it's. I'm personally. I mean, I was saying this earlier on. I think I'm a little bit surprised that he wasn't given sort of an extra couple of weeks, because I think the next quarterly announcement of BT is going to be in about a month, something like that.
Right.
Month and a half. So I would have assumed that he would have been given another month.
Right. Maybe
Then-
that's going to suck. Maybe they all know that's going
Yeah.
to suck.
But then that gives them so much ammunition to get rid of him, and I just think it shows
Right.
like this. What's his name? Jan Duplessis, the new chairman. He's supposedly
he's done
a
the towel
hard
flicking,
hitter.
I think.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
supposedly a no nonsense.
Yeah.
Literally, I turn around businesses that are in
Yeah.
a bad shape,
Yeah.
and I'm very decisive. And I think he what it's been about. He's been in charge
He's
6
not been
months
there that
now.
long. Yeah, it's quite
That's some
new.
decisive
Yeah.
stuff, right?
And
there,
I think
isn't
he's just gone. No,
Yeah.
this is a 5-year failed experiment. Now, sorry, you're out.
Go take your haircut somewhere else.
But I don't know. I mean, this is something we were saying when on the way up here. I think certain things can be blamed. Patterson can be blamed for certain things, but no one could have avoided some of the catastrophes that he's gone through in the last 2
Such
years.
as?
The accounting scandal, I think that would have happened under anyone. The BT,
Isn't there something? I mean, I don't know. I've clearly never been a CEO, but you sort of think, does the buck stop there? He should have had some.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
he isn't personally keeping an eye on the Italian accountants.
I think
But-
you trust your staff, don't you? But if they
Right.
cock up, then you have to take the
you have to take
you
the
have to
price.
take the full. That's where you get paid the big bucks, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though, like Jamie says, I agree. That's the sort of thing I think could happen on anybody's watch.
Fair
Because
enough.
what sort of processes could you possibly introduce to prevent
Yeah.
something like that? Unless you know every person in.
There
the team,
could have
you know,
been
it's-
there could have been more oversights committees.
Maybe. Yeah,
but I doubt any other CEO would
Right.
have put those oversight
Okay,
committees
fair enough. I
unless
can
a
see
really
that. So that
paramount
alone
one.
is like shit
or
happens.
even pensions. The pensions deficit has been going on for years.
Yeah.
Even
But they're in good company on that one as well.
yeah, but
They
even
are.
prior to him being CEO. So you can't really blame that too much on him.
No.
And let's be honest, this recurring talk about Openreach has been going on for years.
And again,
Well,
that's
I-
certainly not due to him.
I think, although Jamie and I were saying earlier, I don't know if he's managed that relationship with Ofcom particularly well.
Right.
I mean, I think any incumbent, there's a lot of sort of foot dragging and.
Yeah.
All right, it happens in other countries as well. You see it to some extent in Germany and I think other markets where incumbents, for obvious reasons, don't want to do things that regulators want them to do because they've got sort of
Yeah.
shareholder resistance to it. But I don't know. He could have
He could
done
have been a bit
something. He
more-
could have been a bit more proactive, I think. And
He could have done more to make that relationship a bit more hospitable.
Yeah.
He could have.
Do you think he should have made bigger concessions quicker, or kicked up more of a fight? I mean, they seem to be the two ends of the spectrum.
I just think there's still quite a lot of. I mean, we always talk about this sort of fibre investment issue, and there's still quite a lot of timidity, isn't there? About
I think they just didn't do enough. Like you say, like the BT as an incumbent are always going to be on the back foot. They're always going to be in the firing line because they're the biggest. They're an ex-monopoly. They own what was a nationally funded assets, which is now transferred into their possession.
Yeah.
They're always going to be there
under greater scrutiny.
They're always going to be a scapegoat for whatever's going wrong. I just think over the last couple of years they just didn't do enough to fight back the barrage of like, for instance, fibre, they haven't rolled out enough. I mean, the connectivity side of things, they just didn't do enough.
But I wonder if doing something really radical, which obviously you'd have to sort of get shareholders on board, but how to treat Openreach has been the big topic of discussion in the UK for years, and it was sort of functionally separated. So there's it's run at arm's length from BT, but that wasn't enough, and now the regulators legally separated it, but it's still a part of BT Group. There's a lot of pressure for them to actually have it spun off as an entirely separate business where you get other kind of infrastructure players coming in and investing in it. I just wonder if BT, if Patterson could have done something really bold and said, well, actually, we think that's a sensible idea. That will allow us to focus the rest of BT on content, other things he's obviously interested in.
But I think, fundamentally, as a business model, I think that's completely... That's a car crash when you're looking at the convergence business model. Like
in terms of the spending.
To own your own assets is the perfect scenario for the convergence business model. So I think he could have that would have made a better relationship with Ofcom, but that is completely contradictory to what every other telco is trying to do in terms of owning mobile infrastructure, content, and a fixed infrastructure. So it would have been a perfect scenario, and it would have made a better relationship with the regulator, and it probably would have made it easier for him in the long run, and he probably still would have his job if that had been right. I mean, you're plucking things out of the air there, but it's completely contradictory to the general accepted convergence business model. But even
those, no one's ever going to build a national network that expands the whole of the UK that sort of duplicates what BT's done. So you've always got this question of whether. You look at markets like Australia where they've been really radical and sort of completely spun it off, and all those networks that used to be owned by Telstra are now part of this NBN. Been a bit of a... and there's always a big question of whether that's an approach that should be taken in other countries. So you could build your fibre networks in urban areas and they've got the mobile infrastructure anyway with EE, but
maybe you could have one idea. It's not perfect, but you could have spun off some of the network in some regions. Kept London and then spun off the north and said, look, we don't have a national monopoly anymore. We're controlling the fixed infrastructure in the south, but the north we're going to sell that off, and and then it diversifies who owns actual infrastructure in the UK.
I think other things they probably could have done, which is sort of broadly in the category of managing the Openreach situation better, is they've obviously created circumstances that have given people like Sky or whoever lots of reasons to moan, such as a claimed discrepancy in terms of sort of customer service to BT versus third-party partners. So, maybe there's just been a corporate culture in BT that's been too parochial, too focused on their own little bits, whereas what they should have been doing is like, look, we're the national infrastructure guys, let's just... without Ofcom having to tell us, let's do Openreach the proper way.
It's very, it's short. It's short-termist, isn't it, to screw everyone else? Because if you are the national infrastructure owner, eventually the regulator is going to get a bit pissed when you're screwing everyone else.
And that comes back to the sort of corporate culture thing, which is a little bit related to the Italian accounting. Within large corporates, I know it's really hard to change them, but you look at a corporate culture of somewhere like, I don't know, let's say Amazon, which is supposed to be all sort of customer-centric, and then you look at a typical corporate culture, which is normally the reason customer-centric exists as a concept is because it's very inward-looking. It's people looking at their own little silos, feathering their own nests, building their own little empires, improving their own little cell in the great big corporate spreadsheet. And maybe Patterson didn't lack the sort of will or vision or whatever to make people like the Italian accountants or the senior managers at Openreach think bigger picture rather than hitting their own little short-term targets or incentives or whatever. And then one other thing I'll just say, that the most recent thing, which was possibly the straw that broke the camel's back, was the stuff we've spoken about on this pod before, which is all those redundancies. That's not...
I personally, I think that's just a culmination of that's the effect, or I can't. That's the effect. That's the outcome, not
Yeah,
necessarily the
I see.
contributor.
Yeah.
I think that's just. I think you're right. That was just one bit of bad news that investors went, right, this is it. This is it, over and done with now.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure redundancies themselves are bad news. It depends.
No, certainly sometimes shares can go up.
Redundancies are bad news for people.
Yeah.
And
Who
they're
cares
a
about
worry
them?
for politicians, but they're not necessarily
We'll all
bad
be
news
robots soon anyway, so who
for
cares?
investors, are they?
Yeah.
I
I agree.
If you have only half a team and you're still generating the same sales and profits,
Of course, then everyone's happy.
Everybody's happy.
I just don't think it was handled very well.
No, it doesn't look good when
It sort of came out of the blue, didn't it?
and it also doesn't look good when his pay went up so dramatically in
Exactly,
the last financial year.
that was-
that's
we
the
haven't covered
staggering
that.
thing to me, that he and BT's board and their remuneration committee approved this quite hefty sort of. I mean, he didn't take a bonus in the preceding year,
Right.
which is when the Italian scandal broke, but obviously seemed to feel that he deserved one.
Well, maybe it was
and
built
BT's
into him.
board felt he deserved one this year, which
Maybe
is
it's
staggering.
built
to be
him
honest.
to him not getting a bonus. They went, don't worry about it. We'll
We'll
sort
get
you out.
one
mate."
next year, but
Yeah.
it's a effective sort of 72% increase in pay that he got.
I mean, looking at the bad side of it, I mean, you can't ignore. I mean, you're talking about waste. Well, not necessarily wasting money there, but because you're paying someone. So, but the sport thing. I mean, that is the bad bit of Gavin Patterson.
See, Amazon got in.
Yeah, but I'm not. I mean, I'm
There's
not
a few
convinced. about
They're
that.
in now.
But-
2020.
Yeah, over 2 days. So they got over 2 days.
Oh,
So it's one round of fixtures in like the first or the second weekend of December, and then all the Boxing Day fixtures.
Right.
So
That's
yes,
it. So they
it's
just
not
got two
spread
little
around.
spasms of footy.
yeah,
but
basically.
it's
But
like
is it
for free on
a
Amazon
sort of
Prime.
early step
Yeah.
into
That's
doing
really good.
something,
Test.
bigger
I
ambitions
got
in the
Amazon
future,
Prime.
testing the water sort
They're
of thing?
testing
yeah.
it out because I think they got it for Super Cheap. I don't think the Premier League could. I don't know. Well, Super Cheap. This is what I've heard from hearsay from various different people. That the Premier League was struggling to sell it. So
Right.
and it
Right.
was the last package to go.
Yeah.
I thought
It was like
BT got the
package
last
F.
one.
Well, there was speculation. I remember
It was announced on the same day.
Oh.
BT collected one package
Right.
and Amazon collected the other
there
one.
was speculation earlier in the year, wasn't there, that Amazon might come sort of wading in,
Yeah.
and do something really dramatic. I remember writing about
Well,
it.
they're
do something really
spending tons of
dramatic.
money on content, aren't they? In
But-
general.
So I suppose there's always that concern.
We just need Netflix to buy some footy.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think we can all agree that there hasn't been much in the way of demonstrable ROI on all those millions they've shelled
Nah.
out on the footy.
I mean, we said this before, but I mean, it was just a bad idea. You can't maintain subscriptions, especially at the price that they're charging, even if it is included and discounted with, I don't know, a mobile offering with EE or a broadband offering with BT. You can't maintain those subscription levels when you're only offering content on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, first of all, even a football enthusiast wants to watch TV for the rest of the week, and then
Right.
secondly, you're buying a subscription for your household. So most of these people have well, not most, but a substantial proportion of these people will have wife, kids, husbands, all that sort of thing. So you've got to buy content. You've got to buy a subscription which has content which satisfies the whole family.
Yeah.
And BT just didn't fill out. This,
The
I
rest
mean,
of
this
it
I
is
agree. I don't think they executed
It was all
the whole
sport.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're going to make that kind of investment, they
pretty
should have
much.
executed better.
Do you think it would have
I
been
had
more
it.
successful if English teams would have been more successful in the
No,
Champions
not
League?
the slightest. No, I think the whole problem was the fact that so I had BT for a while and I never used it. We watched Netflix all the way through the week and maybe sports on the weekend, just mainly because the rest of the content was like Dave and stuff
But
like
if that's
that.
enough for you to get it in the first place.
Yeah, but I
'cause
mean,
you're still
I
paying,
was-
aren't you, whether you watch it or not? I
Yeah,
guess.
but I was a BT customer for 12
You can opt
months.
out. You can opt out.
I
It's
mean, I was a
like
I'm
BT
not
customer,
anymore.
and then
The
I
BT
stopped
Sport
being.
app
But
is
I don't
good.
watch a lot of football, to
So
be honest.
this is the problem. They managed to get people on, but retaining. So this is why it looked good a couple of years ago because they
Yeah.
were flooding their numbers.
Well, they've lost customers, haven't they?
Yeah.
The last two quarters.
but they can't.
so-
They can't retain them.
Yeah.
Which is why Sky has done such a fantastic job. Is that you look at they have sports and that's the poster child, but then you look at all their relationship with HBO.
Yeah.
Their the Sky Entertainment package which they do, which I know is cheap and risk free because it's a lot of panel shows and all that, but it is entertaining.
Yeah.
They
They got
got
Now TV, all this sort of piecemeal stuff.
but they also got all the music stuff, and they've also got all the other sports and all the
Yeah.
movies. There's something for every.
Did BT worry that if it didn't go and spend heavily on sports rights, that its broadband business was vulnerable?
I-
to Sky.
There'll be a defensive
I
aspect
don't
to
know.
it. I'm sure there'll certainly
because
be
we
defensive
won't know
aspect.
what the toll would have been on broadband if they'd not done that. I mean, the Sky service is basically a resold service, isn't it? So you get the same speed levels as you do on BT, and if they can offer you lots of generous footy and movies at the same time,
I think there probably was a defensive part to it. I'm sure they gave great PowerPoint on the matter. And about how there'd be convergent and how there'd be a one-stop shop for everyone's communication needs and all that sort of thing. But
there's no sign of them backing away from it, is there, at the moment? This is the thing.
Well,
I mean, everybody's
back.
slamming their football strategy.
So they've scaled back. So I think this year they've only got 56 games or something like that. And I think in years gone by it was more of a. I can actually get it up now.
I know that the actual money spent was down a bit anyway, wasn't it, this year on the rights?
I think in years gone there was
what they're going to do.
I think in years gone there was more of an even split between. I don't think
Sky
it was
BT,
100% even, but it was more. Sky had a few more games, but it was a bit more balanced. And I think I'll get the exact numbers out now, but BT has less games, considerably. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Premier League, of course, yeah.
So they've got
it's two per weekends roughly.
So 128 matches are going to be on Sky Sports. 52 matches are going to be on BT Sport, and 20 matches are going to be on Amazon Prime.
But that's way more than 52 is a lot more than like this season. This season was like not even 30.
Oh, was it? Oh, maybe it's gone up then.
I get the app, and honestly, it's one game on a Saturday, one game on a Sunday. That's it.
But it'd be interesting to see whether the new CEO moves completely away from that.
Well,
maybe one per weekend.
That in itself, one per weekend.
Yeah, that would still make 60.
Actually, no, it's less than that. It's one per weekend, like the 4 p.m. or 5 p.m.
We got plenty of other stuff, so I don't want to get too bogged down in that. One thing, who's next then? Who do we reckon they should bring in? So there's a succession planning, isn't it? It's all orderly. It hasn't just flounced out the door.
I know Bloomberg's speculating that Alison Kirkby, who's at Tele2, I think, is a potential successor. I don't know why they think that. They have their sources.
Maybe Alara.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Push Alara up the ladder.
You mean? Yeah. Well, they've promoted EE people into lots of senior positions, haven't they? So
that would complete the EE takeover.
He's in charge of their combined consumer group now, isn't he? So they could just push.
They've got two sort of super silos, consumer and business.
Patterson came out of consumer, didn't he?
He's a marketing guy, isn't he?
He was in the consumer business, wasn't he? Before.
Yeah, consumer marketing.
Yeah.
Alara's one. So there's your one, Kirkby. I couldn't see no other sort of UK sort of ISPs or telcos spring immediately to mind. They're not going to go and poach someone from somewhere like Vodafone, are they? Well, they might, I suppose.
What's his name's doing a good job. Jeffries seems to be doing a good job over there.
Vodafone UK.
Yeah. And what's his name's leaving in 6 months, so you never know.
Kalau.
No, right at the top. Group CEO.
Yeah,
that's Vittorio
Kalau.
Oh, Vittorio. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to go to BT though.
Well, no, he's presumably leaving.
I think he's just leaving because
I think when I wrote it up, he's leaving to spend more time with his money.
Exactly.
So that's. And by the way, while we're talking about the CEO merry-go-round, there's a breaking bit of news
Good segue.
Today. A breaking bit of news today.
Yeah, which won't be breaking on Monday, Pierre. I know. Which is that the guy in charge of Verizon is calling it a day or throwing in the towel or whatever other metaphor I'll then get called up on.
I'm not sure his first name is.
He's throwing up the towel.
No, that is his first name, isn't it?
Lowell
McAdam.
Lowell.
McDowell, is it?
Lowell.
We need to check this.
I can't remember.
I've got their press release up.
We should really know the name of Verizon CEO.
Yeah, turns out we're shit at our jobs. All right, Lowell. Yeah, Lowell. Lowell. I'm gonna go Lowell. Okay.
Lowell McAdam.
Yeah. So he's heading off. He's been there forever, hasn't he?
Says since 2011.
Yeah, I'll do. And guess who he's getting? Guess who he's getting replaced by? Our old mate who used to run Ericsson, Hans Vestberg.
Bloody hell!
So Hans, about a year or two ago, after he was booted out of Ericsson, went to head up the network side of Verizon, and we were all going, okay, this shows that Verizon's pretty serious about the sort of underlying tech.
About buying equipment from Ericsson.
Yeah, and buying executives from Ericsson, because at least one or two other Ericsson execs have joined Verizon since then.
And Ericsson's upped its business with Verizon considerably.
Right, apparently. Okay, so it's all going well all round. So that was a double win for Ericsson. They got rid of a CEO who wasn't delivering, and developed an excellent sort of commercial channel. And
That helps that Huawei's not in that market, obviously.
yes, that does help considerably. They keep getting done now. The Australian thing. There's some other bit of aggro going on. It's
Really?
Yeah, they're just little bits and bobs. Anyway, that's a tangent. So Hans Vestberg. So what, Ian? What do you think about Vestberg taking over at Verizon?
I mean, I only just learned about it, so
Right.
not really had time to think
First
much
impressions.
about it. I mean, I suppose he's been there in a very senior position, hasn't he? He's head of
CEO.
networks, and he's been a CEO.
There, yeah.
I mean, I don't really have a good sense of what his track record's been at Verizon while he's been
Well,
head
they've
of
still
networks.
got a network.
They've still got a
give him
network.
that.
They seem to be. I mean, they're still one
What,
of
they
the.
haven't lost it yet.
He's at
they
least
haven't misplaced it.
he's at least delivered a bit of continuity.
He's lost it down the back of the sofa.
Yeah. I could have sworn I left it here.
The odd thing is that was him sort of going to Verizon so soon after, relatively soon after leaving
Yeah,
Ericsson, where his tenure was. I mean, the last few months looks pretty bad for him. Yeah.
exactly.
Is there not some sort of rule about doing that?
Well, there is. I mean, they're like football managers, aren't they? They sort of pop up at another club after.
Once you're at the
after
CEO,
the league.
but I mean-
international CEO table.
But I mean, once you go from, because he went from Ericsson to buy side, he went from sell side to buy side very quickly. Is there?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's.
Oh, I see what you mean.
There
It's
are.
a conflict of interest. type.
Yeah, I think there are some rules about going from regulator straight into private business. I think
Right.
there's got to be some sort of like cool down, because I think that was one of the things that came out of. I learnt this a couple of weeks ago. Came out of The Big Short.
Okay.
That there was no rules between going from a financial regulator into a private financial organisation, and that was one of the big what
Okay.
that's got to be suspect.
Our own head honcho, of course, made that transition at some stage.
Yeah,
Not that
yeah.
we're suggesting for
Yeah,
1
yeah.
second any impropriety.
But
I mean-
didn't he go the other direction?
No, he
He
went
went
Ofcom to Alcatel, or maybe there's something in between. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
possibly.
Anyway, you're great. We all like you very much.
I mean, he's
Pay us more.
he's obviously knows the networks business
Pay
a
rise.
lot.
Cough pay rise.
Hey, right.
Sorry,
Bonus.
He obviously knows the networks business really well, and that's interesting given the big focus,
Yeah.
I guess, for companies like Verizon and AT&T at the moment is on, especially in the US, as Jamie was saying the other week, they're all making such a big noise at the moment about 5G, and therefore having somebody in charge who knows that.
So that's quite a sort of
presumably knows
aggressive
that
statement of
technology
intent in
pretty well.
terms of AT&T. You're not going to have
I would
5G
say
or your
so.
own way.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, I mean, I think you were saying before we started that they've not sort of got somebody in who's, from the content side of things, or
Yes.
and certainly you could see that happening these days in the US
Yeah,
with
'cause they've got
AT&T
Oath
going for
and
Time
stuff.
Warner, and they've had their own content moves. Yeah,
I
with
hope they
this-
fired the
Is
person
it
who came up
Oath?
with Oath.
That's Yahoo and AOL combined, right?
Sounds too much like Oath.
It does, yeah. So
but,
they could have had someone from that side of things, I guess, taking over.
Yeah, I mean,
but-
my first take on it is, maybe we should have seen it coming because he's been empire building with former sort of colleagues from Ericsson. But I don't think, you've been quite discreet about it. But let's face it, he left Ericsson because Ericsson was sucking with him in charge.
Yeah.
And
He
there are
was
some
the
signs
Patterson
that-
of Ericsson.
yes, exactly. And I seem to remember he's got quite a sort of ambitious haircut as well. Maybe there's something
It's
going
gone
on.
through various phases. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
quite long and shaggy, and
Exactly.
other
So
times
that's
bit
a
more like
borderline
mine.
mullet.
So you're saying
Which
there's like
Kind
a
of like your hair before you had that sharp
Yeah,
haircut.
I did the
Ian.
same thing.
so it's
That's
a
true.
it's a red flag if you come up with a mullet.
I think today marks end of mullet day.
You're CEO material. If you're
So you kind of suck, but that doesn't mean, as we were just saying, we were giving Patterson a few passes because there's lots of stuff. So let's give Vestberg a few passes as well. However, he wants to not suck this time, like with football managers. You have football managers to do the merry-go-round, but if they send more than a couple of teams, if they relegate more than a couple of teams, it's kind of
over.
game over.
Yeah, but you get these guys who go, like, they might, cock it up at Man United and then end up at a sort of, just above the relegation.
Yeah.
But he's gone from Manchester United to Chelsea, hasn't he, in going to Verizon? I mean, it's another massive.
Well, I think in terms of
player
market cap,
and-
they're a lot bigger. He's gone from sort of
Right, okay.
He's gone from West Ham to Man U.
to Man City.
So,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The market cap's certainly a lot bigger after he got finished with it.
There is that. So yes, interesting times. And obviously, we wish them all the best. And there could be worse things to be than to be an ex-CEO with tons of money.
Yeah.
So there we go. Okay, you two. You've been sort of gallivanting around, sort of hanging out with various operators this week. Jamie, why don't you give us a quick sort of itinerary of what you and Ian have been up to this week?
Well, we went to see.
I'm glad you asked him because I can't even remember.
We went to see
Helping out with his
Vodafone
Alzheimer's.
on Tuesday.
And
Where
what's that
we
all
had
about?
lunch with I can't remember her name, but the
Helen
General
Lamprell.
Counsel, Helen
Lamprell.
Lamprell,
I think
the CTO, Scott Petty, the head of
networks.
Enterprise.
Head of Enterprise. I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name, and then Kai Prigg,
Yeah.
the head of networks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fairly big lineup, isn't it?
It was
a good
actually.
It was a good lunch, actually. I mean, in
Food
terms of
was
the
good.
food and
What did you have for lunch?
discussion. Well, actually, I say that I had a load of nibbles, which were delicious, and then I had some asparagus starter.
And then he
And
put
I
it
then you
had
were
to
full.
leave.
Oh, you had to leave?
Yeah,
Well, you didn't have to go and do some work, did you?
I had to pick the kids up.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I
one
stayed
of
for
them.
the
What was
for
the
the
main course,
course.
Jamie?
Sort of thing.
Some chicken thing.
Chicken surprise.
Very nice.
It was.
Yeah, it was actually very nice.
It's important that
yeah.
you remember, because I think I want you to compare it with any other lunches that operators have bought for you this week.
We had another lunch this week, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, we got to declare.
Well,
okay,
that
we might as well
was-
say it now.
That
So
was
who else?
really good, I thought.
Who else
we
were you
went
to hang out
to
with?
went to Orange. We went to hang out with Ramon.
Ramon Fernandez, the CFO of Orange.
Yeah, but that was all off the record.
We
so you
can't,
can't
say what
anything.
he said, but we can say what we ate. I think that the food's not off the record.
It's not embargoed.
What was it? It was ox knuckle.
Yeah, it was delicious.
Knuckle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was
lush.
nice.
It's really, really
It's like
tasty.
it's like steak,
Was
off
it?
the bone.
Just
Yeah.
really, really
Knuckle.
tender.
Really
Just
tender.
really slow cooked. Just fell apart. It was
Okay,
Yeah.
lovely.
And
I got
else
pictures.
was
Don't worry.
oh, okay.
No,
Can I
it
do a
was
close-up
really
with
good.
the camera.
Can we get a close up?
Of what?
You're not engaged
Of
with
his
this food
phone.
discussion
Yeah.
for someone from France.
He wants to show on his phone a picture of his
This was our
lunch.
dessert. Very nice.
Okay.
That was our main.
In glorious Technicolor.
Yeah.
Very nice. That was.
I can't remember what the starter was.
And that was
now.
the starter. It was some tuna on avocado, and I don't particularly like avocado.
all washed down with some very nice wine and a glass of champagne
Excellent.
when we arrived.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And this was all
It's a hot
at
day.
where the
Just
French
the way we do
Open
it.
Yeah,
is.
this was at Roland Garros.
Laurent
Yeah.
Garros, that's it, yeah.
Which was good
Uh,
fun, actually.
mhm.
I mean, we had a bit of a tech tour, so we can talk about the tech tour.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
You picked up more on that
Yeah.
than I did, probably, didn't you?
Yeah,
'Cause
there was-
you were also engaged. You were an active participant in the tech tour, weren't you?
Well, there was
The,
so there was 3 different things they were showcasing. The first was a sort of like a mech use case where they were
Mobile edge computing.
yes,
Yeah.
where they were essentially using sort of like processing power on the edge of the clouds to monitor the flow of individuals around, so you know where everyone is
Okay.
at any particular point in the entire grounds. So it's good for crowd control, good for letting people into stadiums and all that sort of thing.
Good for spooky Orwellian.
Well,
surveillance
no,
sort of
because
stuff.
they were saying it's only like 3 or 4 pixels, and at 3 or 4 pixels you can't identify an individual, but you can say this is a person. So I don't
Right.
know who it is, but I know it's a person.
Right.
And then at the same time, they said it's all processed on the edge, so it's processed, then deleted, and the insight is sent back, but the actual data itself is deleted. So privacy concerns are actually answered there.
Okay.
The second one was
Which is increasingly important. with
yes, yeah.
The constant aggro that Facebook and Google and people are getting.
The second one was sort of like immersive content thing, which I didn't really pay attention to. I wasn't really that interested in it.
Were you interested in?
Can't
I think your
remember it.
mind was on other things.
I was
most of
watching
the time.
Jamie because he was playing tennis.
No,
Oh,
so that
that's
was the
right.
third one.
Oh,
That
We
was
did
the
a-
third one.
We
yeah.
did a VR hollow tennis
Yeah.
where you had me in one
Yeah.
section, and about 500 or 600 meters away you had our mate from CCS.
Oh, you were
Insights.
literally a long way apart. That was
yeah,
part
we
of
were
the demo.
a couple of
Yeah.
hundred meters
So
away.
this was part of this was a sort of latency demo,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it? Okay.
And it was, and then you had our mate, Paolo Pescatori from CCS Insights, and the other one, and we just played a game of tennis. I kicked his ass, and then But it was great.
He
it was
couldn't hit
great.
the ball a lot of the time.
He just actually couldn't hit the ball,
Well,
whereas Jamie could.
It was just a latency thing he blamed, I think.
Right.
Oh, there was no latency on it. It's
Come on,
just,
Paolo. Who are you
His
trying to
hand-eye
kid?
coordination was just terrible. I mean, the ball comes at you a lot quicker than you anticipate. But
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I could
Got
tell,
to adjust to it, haven't you?
yeah. But the latency side of things, it was, every time when he was speaking, I could see his mouth moving pretty much exactly the same time.
So, yes.
Yeah, it was.
He had good technique, hitting it with topspin and everything. He just wasn't making contact with the ball.
I see.
Other
He's
than
following
that, he was
through.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
He got some pictures of.
And you
have
didn't
got
kick
any
his ass.
pictures, or-
It's 5-7, wasn't it?
I was winning at 6-1 at some points.
What,
at
yeah,
one
he-
point.
He
Took
stayed
pity
to
on
come
him.
back.
And then I got
He-
a bit cocky. Started lobbing it up in the air, started missing the ball.
Excellent. Well, as long as he still won, otherwise that would have just been humiliating.
But it was good. I mean, it was. I mean, I've never really been convinced by VR, but then you actually do this, and you're like, do you know what? Actually,
That's pretty
the
cool.
technology's starting to get better. Because I was speaking to the guys on the stand afterwards, and they said they got the latest Vive headset, and they said it makes 10 times difference. They said, and you can actually see how VR is going to become a thing.
Yeah.
With when you actually try it
So,
out.
I mean, I suppose sort of living the dream, you and I both working from home, where we've sent the newsletter, we're in our lunch hour, and I sort of text you and go, Jamie, do you fancy a game of tennis? And we both suit up, and we can play tennis against each other, even
Yeah.
though you're in North London, I'm in Hitchin.
Yeah. I mean, the other things that they were talking about is that I can't remember who said this, but the idea is you could have maybe for Roland Garros in particular, you could pack 70 or 80 people into the stage, or a couple of thousand people into Wimbledon, and watch exactly the same thing, but have the sort of the crowd atmosphere, because
I
everyone
see.
is reacting. And then they were talking about that for the AR as well, weren't they?
Yep.
You have these AR glasses on, and you're watching the game on the Wimbledon court as you're going back, and the two players are superimposed there. So there's a lot of. I mean, I can see it.
Yeah.
It's starting to become a real. I've poo-pooed it for God knows how long, but I'm starting to see.
Now that you've done a bit, you've got a taste.
We also learnt a new phrase, didn't we?
Oh yeah, that's probably not off the record.
That's
either.
not off the record. We can call that one a bit. We were talking about a new
Choo
phrase.
choo. Choo choo, like the little sort of boy that
The
the favourite child in the family.
Shoo shoo.
Shoo
There we
shoo,
are.
that's the
Shoo
one.
shoo.
Yeah, shoo
Yeah.
shoo.
We can't really say the context in which you use
Can't,
it.
yeah,
can we?
Right.
Ramon was
But-
talking about his favourite.
I see.
So
And that in French is a shoo
Shoo
shoo.
shoo. Yeah, the actual conversation, if we could write it up, is really funny.
Right. But
yeah, it's really really
Unfortunately,
funny.
we can't.
Well, let's stop tantalising our audience with stuff that we can't tell them about. So, yeah, the mere fact that French culture has a word for that, I mean, that's a bit worrying, isn't it? You're not supposed to have favourites in the family, are you?
No, this is the favorite for anything.
Oh, I see.
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not just like a favourite
I
son
mean,
or daughter or
it's
whatever.
mostly for the family, but it could be for anything. Like if you're a teacher, you could have a shoo shoo in the class. or
Right,
something.
Teacher's pet. Kind
Yeah,
of thing.
he was talking about favourite child. I think was his
Yeah,
example.
yeah,
That's how he
I see.
explained it to us.
Yeah,
yeah.
You have that favourite child,
Yeah.
the
So,
one that
that
looks
gets good
better,
marks at
gets
school
good
and-
grades.
Right. Yeah, I don't,
Maybe the other ones are a bit ugly. He was-
It was very funny, very
That
very
was like
funny.
blunt,
yeah.
hence
Hence off the record.
honesty there.
Hence
And
off
the
record.
worst thing was you could see Paolo stopping for a second and pondering it, and I was like, right, you've got 3 kids, haven't you, Paolo? So I wonder what's going on in your head there.
I've got 2 and I don't have a shoo shoo. I'll have you
I
know.
don't have one.
What was I going to say? So dinners, lunches, which wins, Orange or Vodafone?
For me, Orange, because I didn't make the Vodafone main
Yeah, well,
course.
The
It
food was absolutely incredible.
Right.
Just Orange wins.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
don't get me wrong, the food was good at Vodafone, but the French one was
Yeah.
just really good.
I mean,
What can
French operator versus a UK operator. It's
Exactly.
I wasn't going
kind
to
of to
say
be
anything.
expected,
but-
isn't
Yeah.
it? Really.
Fair enough. And before we move on from this topic, we sort of scooted past the Vodafone thing pretty quickly.
Mm.
Did they say anything noteworthy?
Yeah, they were quite interesting. I thought
Yeah,
they were.
yeah.
I mean, the theme was 5G and sort of regulatory challenges around that. And it's not. There wasn't really a huge amount said that was new. I don't think, but
Right.
they were pretty sort of
Just good chit-chat.
aggressive in terms of their criticisms of the regulator and what's happened to sort of move things along. And I mean, this kind of comes back to the stuff about BT that we were talking about earlier.
There's also a segue into what I'm going to bang on about to finish off.
A lot of unhappiness about still not being able to get access to the services they want for backhaul in particular. So this is quite a big issue when 5G networks are rolled out, getting that sort of dark fibre connectivity.
Is this Openreach's fault again?
Yeah, well, this is a long-running issue because I think Ofcom tried to make BT offer dark fibre services, and then there was a regulatory challenge by BT, and a court ruled that Ofcom had basically got its market definition wrong and sent it back to the drawing board.
Yeah,
and in the meantime, BT's come up with this virtual dark fibre that nobody seems to be very happy with.
Right. And
Ofcom's now decided, after consultation with stakeholders, that that's no good. So everything's kind of almost at reset.
Oh, I didn't realise they decided that virtual virtual dark fibre was bollocks.
That's a no-go, basically.
I mean, it wasn't just the sort of the Openreach thing that she was moaning about.
Wasn't just that, no.
I mean, it was just like the one thing she said at the beginning.
Planning stuff as well.
Well, she just said the regulatory environment in the UK is the worst she's worked in.
Yeah.
And it was just simple things like I didn't realise this, but this is
mast height is one issue.
Mast height. That's what Kai said. It was really.
They can't build high masts, and apparently, it's a real issue because you get sort of leaves and trees growing over them, and then it causes interference.
So signal is always better in winter because you don't have the foliage on the trees.
Right. And why aren't they allowed? Is this just some arbitrary thing?
Planning issues.
UK regulations.
A lot of it's NIMBYism, actually.
Yeah. People don't want to see them.
Yeah.
The highest height you can get in the UK is actually half that of Germany.
Yeah.
But like Kai pointed out, I think he said, for every 10 meters you go up, you essentially double coverage.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's.
Seems like
it's a big difference.
But the other thing,
you've got to draw a little pretty picture on it, whatever.
The other thing they said was, it's not like, ultimately, the concern is that there's going to be loads of masts all over the English countryside.
Yeah.
And they pointed out, well, let us go further up, and
we'll have
to build less. So we're not going to pepper the countryside with them. We're going to build less because they're going to be much more efficient.
Yeah. And by the way, electricity pylons, so calm down because there's plenty of them everywhere.
No, but
we seem to have got over that, haven't we?
You can still go. I think you can go up as high as I've seen mobile masts that have gone up as high as electricity pylons.
My point is that people talking about the aesthetics. We already have our aesthetics interrupted by pylons.
I know, it's strange.
And wind farms and all kinds of shit.
It's a strange one, isn't it?
Well, talking about that, I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to move on to my just quick one to end on, and all this talk about regulation and Ofcom and all that sort of thing plays into it. Because I wrote a little thing today. Ofcom's come out of the consultation. They charge UK mobile operators annual licence fees for those bits of spectrum that they gave them rather than were won in auction. I don't know, it's a bit before my time why they were at one stage giving them away and then they started auctioning them, but there we go. And this applies to 900 and 1800 megahertz.
To make some money.
Well, quite. So 900 and 1800 megahertz was given away for whatever reason at some stage. And they charged them an annual license fee per megahertz. Now, 4 years ago, they just went, right, we're charging. So, for example, in EE, because this is what I was focusing on my write-up, EE, you're paying 25 mil a year. We want you to pay 100 mil a year.
Yeah.
It just went straight up 4 years ago. And EE, understandably, went, hold on a minute. And they went, all right, then, 75 mil a year. And EE went, no, that's still 3 times more than we're paying, so we're going to take you to court. So they took them to court, and the court went, yeah, that's bullshit. And that was at towards the end of last year. So now Ofcom's come back with new proposed levels. And, upon reading it initially and reminding myself of the context, I was thinking, okay, this will probably be somewhere in between, let's say 50, somewhere in between. But no, they've come back with 82. So they've lost an appeal at 75 million a year for EE. Everyone has to pay.
Do you think they're slightly mad?
Well, I don't know what it is. I'm just picking EE as an example because those are the numbers I've got from. But so they've lost an appeal at a certain level, and so now they've come back and gone, how about more?
Yeah.
And it does seem slightly mad. Now, I haven't actually chatted to Ofcom, but they've got this exhaustive document. I'm sure if we were chat to them, they'd explain why they think it's justified to come back. Some of it might be inflation, but I don't see what I don't get is how if they've lost an appeal in courts that have gone through due process, what makes them think the court are going to suddenly turn around and go, oh, all right then?
Well, it's why they're allowed to do it as well, because surely if the courts come out with a decision that you can't charge this much, and then they try and increase it from what they've proposed, they're sort of ignoring the court's ruling.
Well, I think it's got to go back to the court. I think built into them doing this is that they're basically going, all right, court, have another look.
Right.
I don't think EE, because it was EE that actually brought the court action against them because they're the ones who are on the hook for the most cash because they got the most spectrum.
Yeah.
I don't think EE, from what I understand, who, by the way, I can confirm are immensely frustrated by this, was what I heard from insiders. I think EE's thinking that this is so clearly got to go to the courts that EE doesn't even need to get its lawyers involved.
So it's back in the courts at the moment?
Well, I don't think it necessarily is, but I think it seems to be inevitable that it will be.
Yeah. And is the situation similar for other UK operators as well?
Yeah, so EE, when it took the court case, EE sort of did it on behalf of everyone.
Yeah.
It kind of took one for the team.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have a little wit round when they all get together and a little legal fund.
You just buy the drinks at the pub instead.
Yeah, exactly that. We'll get a court case, but you get a round in and some crisps and some pork scratchings, and we'll call it quits. Yes, and it's just baffling. Your question, it's just baffling that Ofcom didn't try and meet him in the middle. Yeah. And it's come up with this Ofcom documents are always so incredibly long, with annexes and all sorts
lots
of
of
things.
Numbers in them. Paragraph numbers.
So it's justified it, and it's looked at other countries, and it's looked at, pro rata, if they'd won it in an auction, what they paid, and I'm sure all these things.
So I remember looking at this a few years ago, actually. I think when it first surfaced and operators were making a fuss then about increases to the fees. I think some of Ofcom's justification was that these bands that were originally awarded 900 and 1800, obviously given out at first when mobile phone services were first being rolled out.
Yeah.
And all we ever used them for was ordinary phone calls.
Right.
And then with the introduction of refarming and operators being allowed to use 1800 for 4G and this sort of stuff, I think Ofcom was saying, well, the value of the spectrum is a lot higher.
Right.
It's only fair that you should.
There's some validity to that. So we reserve the right to reassess their value.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at it the other way, in my sort of quite sceptical, small government, laissez-faire economics kind of way, it's just like, yeah, exactly. It's just the state. You look at the tax we pay. We pay income tax, we pay national insurance, we pay VAT on everything we buy. We pay tax on buying and selling a house, on various things. Yeah. They tax on inheritance. So there's all these little taxes. I think back in the sort of Tony Blair era, they used to call them stealth taxes, didn't they? They'd slip in a new one where they even do ones where they claim it's good for your health. Now there's like sugar tax on a bottle of Coke, and they claim it's for our own good, but it just so happens to bring them yet another revenue stream. So that's the.
They're probably quite desperate because they're not making as much from selling spectrum as they used to.
Could be.
Back in those days of the good old 3G days when you used to be able to make 20 billion from an auction.
No, indeed.
That's not going to happen.
And they've probably started putting that into their forward planning. They're just banking on once every decade another 20 bill, but it's not turning out that way.
Yeah.
So so that was that one really. And there is that broader thing about whether or not people should have to pay for this. So I think we've chatted about it before on the pod, and Ofcom does perform a necessary function. We do need Ofcom, and that requires some money.
Yep.
But sometimes you wonder quite how much surplus they're getting from all this stuff. Yeah. And how much is just going into the general pot.
They're thinking if we don't get this much money, we're going to have to start making some headcount reductions at Ofcom.
Well, there is that. There is that. Sharon White will start having to go to Pret at lunchtime. Yeah. Instead of having a big 3-course dinner. But I'm just really sceptical that I think we did last time we chatted about this, a back of a fag packet calculation. I'm just really sceptical that the amount of money they bring in is necessary for the running of Ofcom. So there is some profiteering. It's just that you're not allowed to call it profiteering because it's a public sector. Yeah. So that's that. I think we've pretty much sort of run our course on that. I'm going to leave early because I'm going to go up to.
You're rocking.
Yeah, I'm going up to Download Festival. That's why I haven't got my Guns N' Roses one on. I'm saving that for tomorrow because Guns N' Roses are headlining tomorrow.
Washed and pressed and in your backpack.
So think of me tomorrow moshing.
I will.
And and all of you think of me too. Although, of course, it won't be tomorrow, will it, Pierre? It'll be the day before yesterday by the time this goes out. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening. Make sure you join us for the next one.